I will be relating to you sort of just storytelling of what we went through in our journey toward a Philippine Procurement Scorecard, which is still a work in progress. No, as you all know, in policy development, this requires two key milestones for all of us. No, in the journey of legislating a law. The first is legislation, where we measure success when a certain or a particular law is passed in Congress and Senate and becomes effective. No? The second key milestone is implementation. Okay? And in implementation, success is usually measured by doing an M&E, okay? A monitoring and evaluation process, wherein we try to look into the gaps existing between what's written in the law and what's being implemented all throughout the country. If we look at the present law of the Philippines, the Government Procurement Reform Act, there have been existing tools that are trying to look into what has been happening all through the years. No? For example, we have, I don't know if it's already finished, but we have the APCPI, the Agency Procurement Compliance and Performance Indicators that's being done in government line agencies. We also have, during my time, I heard that it's still being continued, the PhilJEPS monitoring, wherein PhilJEPS is looking into the compliance of different government line agencies in terms of its posting in the PhilJEPS system of the invitations, the awards, and even who won, who got the contracts. Okay? And we have certain international monitoring tools also, which basically have some sort of focus. They have this sort of focus. For example, the OECD DAC, they have these common benchmark tools, which basically, if you read into this, it's some sort of a country comparison, looking at the legal framework, looking at compliance, and the developments through the years of the different implementation or even the amendments to the law. Okay? And through this, what we wanted really to do is to amplify citizen voice using a monitoring tool which enables citizens to give feedback or assessments of a priority public service. And also, a monitoring tool which sort of enhances social and public accountability and increases responsiveness of the service providers, which in this case are the government agencies. Basically, what we were looking then was from a lens of a social accountability framework. So basically, that's we were trying to look for a monitoring tool which gives us a venue for government and the citizens to come together and do the assessment jointly. There is still a need for a joint government and community measurement of agency compliance to procurement policies, rules, and regulations. We were trying to complete the picture, not just monitoring or assessing procurement laws, rules, and regulations from a government point of view, from a particular line agency point of view, but together with the citizens who are engaged with this particular line agency. For example, in the DepEd, their CSO counterparts are active procurement observers of the department themselves. So, the procurement scorecard aimed to measure attributes of transparency, accountability, participation, efficiency, and effectiveness, and competitiveness in the public procurement process. Okay? Also, we wanted to identify gaps and issues in the procurement system during the process of interface itself between government and the CSO representatives. Okay? And in so doing, strengthen citizen voice and empowerment. Okay. These are the caveats, the limitations that we identified early on and even after the running of the scorecard itself. No? Still, as I earlier said, it's a work in progress. We are learning so much in the implementation and the development of the tool. Okay? The participants are few, but they were key implementers of respective programs in government and CSOs. Resources were also not that aplenty. Okay, so we were working on a very tight budget also, and okay, And in reading the scores that were garnered during the workshops, we made simple averaging. We were not, we have not yet looked into it on a deeply, statistical measurement standards, like looking into the correlation, the divergence, the mean variances. So we have not gone into that. Okay. Let's now look into the tool. Okay. When in the development of the tool, we were looking at the stages of public procurement as written in the Republic Act 9184, and this is divided into 3 stages: the planning, the bidding, and the implementations. And then, for each stage, we look at 5 variables: transparency, accountability, participation, efficiency, and effectiveness, and competitiveness. Okay. So this is the tool. I will go through this very fast because we will not have time to really look into each of the indicators. As I've mentioned, the stages are here: planning, bidding, and implementation. And then this is the TAPEC, or transparency, accountability. And we have the indicators. Okay. For each stage, there are different indicators. And these indicators came from both government and the CSO representatives. Okay. They agreed upon the said indicators. Okay. The participants are the following. Okay. We have the government line agencies. As I've said during the workshop, we identified early on 3 priority government line agencies. That's Department of Education, Public Works and Highways, and Department of Health. And civil society organizations, we particularly identified those citizen observers and monitors who are in direct and active engagement with the 3 departments. This is what we've gone through. There are 3 major steps in the process that we journeyed through. No? The preparatory work, and then the first workshop wherein the indicator setting and the generation of indicators were done, and the last workshop was the scoring. In the preparatory work, the ANSA team did research work, the usual. Research into what is a scorecard, citizen scorecard, and even some of us went through a training on the scorecard, looking into it and trying to really assess if which performance monitoring tool will be most applicable to the Philippine context. And then we convened the first workshop, which was the workshop on the generation of indicators. Okay? The first activity during that workshop was the leveling off with the stakeholders. Okay? There was a need to level off between government and CSOs, particularly in terms of definition of terms, what we were referring to when we say bidding, what are the processes during bidding, what are the processes during planning, what we are referring to during planning, because there was different perspectives coming in from all the participants on what planning is. And then after leveling off, when everybody was working on a common ground, common definition of the terms that are being mentioned during the workshop, we did the indicator generation. Okay? The indicator generation was a divided workshop. Okay? First, the government side did identified their indicators, and then the CSO side also identified their indicators, and then they came together into an interface wherein both tried to look into the indicators that was set by each group and tried to put them together, consolidate, agree on the indicators themselves, delete indicators that will not be useful in the total scorecard tool. And then, when the tool was already cleaned up, we convened the scoring workshop. Again, representatives from the 3 prioritized agencies were present, and participants from the CSOs were also invited during the interface and scoring workshop. So what we will be showing you in the next slides will be the data that was generated between the Department of Education representatives, the citizen observers engaged with them, and the interface. For the planning side, you will see that there is no no score or for participation. This is because in the Philippines, CSOs are not included in the project procurement planning. The highest possible score for the tool is 172. The Department of Education, their scores is 122 and the CSO score is 110. So there's not really that much big gap or disparity between the two, no? But of course, if we look at the individual indicators, there might be a different story. Okay? There was a realization that the DepEd representatives were scoring from the lens of being procurement officers at the central office of the department. Okay? And the CSOs were looking and grading them from the perspective of their experience in engaging the department on a national basis. So that there was a different lens being applied. So one of the agreements there was there is really a need to look at the department on a comprehensive level, okay, on a very comprehensive level. Not look at it from the central office or from the district office even, no? But in its totality. Okay? So one of the next steps will be a department-wide scoring. Some of the insights are the following. Okay? Data information, they provided shared meaning and then enabled government CSOs to come into a consensus on the indicators themselves based on the data that were available to them. Second, from skepticism to receptiveness to trust building. So there was broadening perspectives and appreciation of the policy framework from a purely technical to the higher goal of good governance and public service. Fourth, adapting scorecard not only for sectoral services but even through the entire PFM cycle.